Well, guys, it really pains me to even say this, but we all know who's the current reigning, defending, undisputed NFL Super Bowl champions for 2024. It goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. Or the Kansas City Queefs. If we didn't just give the ball away, not even knowing the goddamn overtime. Okay. Let me just keep a cool head for once. Let me just keep a cool head, just for the sake of all sports. Chiefs just came up as a better team. After a condensed first half where we total around, it only allowed 3 points of total offense. After we opened over the score, we started off slow. We were moving over the ball, moving the chains only twice until Christian McCaffrey had a forced fumble. And then after two straight 3-and-outs, we just decimated offensively the Kansas City Chiefs. Until we allowed 16 points of total offense. We can only allow 9 after a last-ditch Butker had a game-saving overtime field goal kick. And that was after a last-stitch Marquez Valdez-Scantling deep ball. Let me just hash this out. Brock Purdy is the last person to blame. Out of all the questions, thinking like the biggest Achilles heel over the San Francisco 49ers offense has been our seventh round pick quarterback that led us into an NFC title championship game after getting injured. And then he led us with a game-saving performance where he didn't even throw a ball. He only allowed only 2 pass deflections. Jim Moody only had one field goal deflection that had the ball come over to stop us from exceeding over a double-digit lead, until he made the final 2 when we only got 2 field goals. 3 or 2 field goals around the fourth quarter. We were absolutely clueless offensively. It felt like we couldn't even push over the ball. And McCaffrey over that wheel route, and then out of nowhere, Brock Purdy started moving like prime Lamar Jackson. I mean, not like prime. Lamar Jackson's still in his prime, but he won his second MVP, and he comes off breaking over Chris Jones, moving around the edge, splitting around the pocket, and it just felt like he couldn't do any wrong over a majority of the game. Brock Purdy was exceptional with an 89 QBR and 255 yards of total offense. No interceptions made. Didn't even get a passing touchdown. His longest was around a 9-yard wheel route over to Kyle Juszczyk to push over that 9 yard. It was mainly our rushing offense and just massive trick play over a massive trick that had a quick screen pass turned into a chuck over to Juwan Jennings over to Christian McCaffrey for a that just broke over 2 tackles to get a 21-yard gain to get that first down early around the first half. It just gutsy gameplay and poor game management when it was like a 4th and 3rd around overtime, and I guess we were more predicate to extend the game when our secondary has been absolute trash after Patrick Mahomes had a sluggish first half. A very sluggish first half. I think he was like at least 4-14 until he came off breaking over an unanswered 17-yard rush he had over to the first down until he found Scantling for a touchdown around the 3rd. Then Travis Kelce, that was literally screaming to Andy Reid to having 3 straight third down conversions completed for first downs. And everybody wants to always put the game planning accountable over to the coach when it's just everybody on the Niners just shit the bed around the second half that pushed us over in overtime when we were leading by 10-3. Halftime show was all over the place, by the way. Usher was trying to look. I respect Usher for trying to make this like the performance like for his life, and it technically is. You have hundreds of millions of people watching this game, so of course he has to try to ball out, get every type of roller skate to piano with Alicia Keys to groping her in the middle over in the stadium while her husband's watching with massive eye contact in quotation marks. And I'm sorry, I'm just not a big fan of the halftime show, and we just came out of having a pregnant woman performing literally one of the some of the greatest rap artists performed literally back in LA back at back when the Bengals played the Rams. So I think we're kind of tapped out over the amount of star power, and it could have been somebody more popular, but she was up in the stands, and I swear she got more screen time than the Chiefs offense. And we were conducting over the ball. Pachenko was ruling us over the rushing game for a majority of this game, over 80 points, 80 yards rushing over Pachenko, but he conducted more first downs. And oh my God, people wanted to push Ray McCloud out of the box, out of the coffin into the pile of shit over manure, while his teammate had contact over the ball trying to block, and it ended up Pachenko trying to go for it because it would be recovered by the Kansas City Chiefs. Sadly, he wasn't successful. So there were minimal mistakes while Deebo Samuels was hurt, and we had to deal over adversity, but we were still moving over the chains, but we just couldn't capitalize. And this goes over to the minimal effort that we had around overtime when we chose to just give the ball to the team that has possibly one of the best records in overtime settings, and now pimp slapped us in 2 separate Super Bowl games. And this was a good game. It was congrats to Patrick Mahomes, 3-time Super Bowl champion and under the age of 30. That's very impressive. With a Hall of Fame worthy coach like Andy Reid, Hall of Fame worthy player like Travis Kelce, with the minimal amount of skill players they had with an outstanding secondary. I'm not going to take anything away from the secondary when it came to that massive pass deflection by Trent McDuffie that was locking down. I think it was either Drew Tranquil that came off that pass deflection off that deep ball over the streak route around the red zone that got us over that field goal that got deflected. And Chris Jones pushing in overtime, being highly emotional but still trying to lead over the charge. While Nick Bosa laid an egg. It was either Eric Armstead with that massive 3-and-out sack. Chase Young was very impressive. We got to give it over to our midfield for covering not a goddamn thing. Only one pass deflection by over Charvarius Ward while he was getting burnt more than my father back in the 90s. And then we lost Dre Greenlaw due to injury around the first half. Massive energy guy, good off his reads, gets possibly one of the better deflecting interceptions, and recovers most of the ball. So losing him was a major blow over the defensive side of the ball, while our secondary has been dodgy. And I've spoken about this in my projections video, that the secondary would be the major dictator over the Niners being successful. And allocated today, I wasn't even expecting us to even get double digits, because we know the Chiefs' track record. But they haven't even played a team like this in months, in years, and even the postseason setting. Knowing that we have a new quarterback, new defensive scheme due to Robert Saleh, that was the defensive coordinator back in the last Super Bowl we played against the Chiefs in. A prime new young edge rusher that only got around up the gut for majority, and then couldn't even get over in the backfield. Somehow trying to chase the chicken that is Patrick Mahomes, that's built like a chicken that got recently domesticated and should be chicken Tyson Nuggets by now. No offense, no offense. We ain't body shaming. I mean, I am, because there's no way, and if somebody like built in a lab like Nick Bosa is struggling to chase Patrick Mahomes down the uprights, trying to roll out and throw. Like, come on. He was getting stuffed over by our linebackers, and I'm sure Bosa ran a decent 40 for somebody of his position. Diamador Lador could barely get his reads, man. Barely. I was shocked how he even let Scatling get that wide open from that quick post down over to the middle. And Scatling was like an absolute waste of space in that receiving core. And just being negligent over the overtime rules and just pushing more conservativeness and just spreading over that read that got the game-winning touchdown around the overtime, that gets me upset. Because this would have been a 50-50 game, knowing how more evenly dominant we are in the postseason. And literally have the most championship success even with an inexperienced quarterback. So the first person to try to blame Brock Purdy or Christian McCaffrey or certain parts of our offensive team, you're completely in the wrong. You don't know how football works. And I don't know what's gonna be when you don't even have a competent coaching staff to don't even believe in them to be coaching over your defensive scheme. Because our newest acquisition shouldn't be as productive as our prime all-pro defensive player of the year edge rusher that should be trying to make sure Patrick Mahomes pisses himself before he releases the ball from the tip of his fingers. I'm not going to lie to you. That was inexcusable. But, yeah. Honestly, and I have nothing against Taylor Swift. It's just customizing the narrative that the only reason majority of the population's even talking about the NFL is Taylor Swift, when that's not even the case. It's literally the biggest game of the season. The Niners have been off-season favorites, and the Chiefs have been blackballed out of contention, mainly on paper because offensively they're kind of a minimal threat out of the three teams they even beat to get there. Out of a top 5 offense, out of the Miami Dolphins, then beating a perennial contender out of the Buffalo Bills, yet again questioning their chances of even being in the Super Bowl conversation at this point, and a league MVP-led Baltimore Ravens, while the Niners had to face against sub-500 wildcard fodder that even had to fight in the last stitch of their division to even get here. You know what I'm saying? Who had the better trials and tribulation while we had a 1 week bye? And don't get me wrong, it's a stacked AFC conference for this time. You had to face the passing leader and 2 All-Pro quarterbacks. So don't mind me if you feel like I have higher expectations of how this game should have went. But it was expected for the Niners to lose if you guys weren't expecting much. And it shouldn't just be on paper. You guys should be going over almost any game. We had 3 fucking football games to watch. Not just 18. So, there's your reasoning, let alone just the understanding why the Chiefs were more of a favorite pick. And this is coming from a Niners fan. So don't feel like I'm just saying this out of pure nepotism. I'm not just pushing anybody under the bus all because we lost a football game that you guys didn't play in. So certain fans that are watching this be adults. And the Niners weren't the better team. So deal with it. So, God. Jesus. I'm proud of them for making it. Because we are recently installing an extra game into already a 4-month season, where you have to go with probably a weekly basis of injuries around a contact sport while facing off against your division rivals. And only time we even had an advantage was over the 1 week bye, being the first seed over in the NFC. It's never easy to make it to the Super Bowl. So I hope you guys understand that. The NFL is not a farmers league. There's a hierarchy in the marquee, and if that was the case, popularity-wise, the Cowboys should have won at least like 5 in this decade, but they haven't in the last 30-something years. So that's sad. Sad to note that I wouldn't be celebrating that the San Francisco 49ers should win the Super Bowl, but there's always next year. There will always be a next year, and that's the biggest positive out of sports. I don't know what's going to be. We understand Kyle Shanahan's possibly in the hot seat yet again for his play calling, his schemes, and possibly the locker room morale. Brock Purdy's up there, probably a top 15, top 10 quarterback. That's a positive to roll out. We have high expectations because we still got Chase Young that hasn't even played a full season with us yet, but shown that he can be effective combo start up the front 5 with the Niners. Secondary is up to be questioned. Jake Moody had an up and down period, but shown to be consistent in the end of the postseason, especially just coming over, clutching the Super Bowl, getting a record 55-yard field goal attempt just for Butker to get a 57-yard field goal to push the deficit over to a 7-point game. God damn. Jesus. And it's going to be years more of these kickers getting insane. It wouldn't surprise me years later we'll see an 80-yard field goal in the NFL. So that's crazy. Very good game. Not as high scoring as last season, but still sucks. My team didn't win, but that's life. Congrats to the Kansas City Chiefs. They are now the allocated dynasty of this decade with 3 Super Bowl championships and 4 to 5 appearances out of the first 6 seasons. Patrick Mahomes is a perennial Hall of Famer at this point. There's still a lot more stuff he can do at this age, and knowing the longevity of current All-Pros in the NFL, and they still have a starting position, even Aaron Rodgers. Patrick Mahomes is going to be probably in the top echelon of all-pro quarterbacks, unless some guys step up. And there's still some great quarterbacks up in the league that just have yet to leap that hump yet. So, that's how we're going to culminate the season, sadly, with another Chiefs win. Back-to-back championships that hasn't been done since the New England Patriots. Some 19, 20 years ago. So, it's a tough pill to swallow, especially if you're a fan of any of these teams in the postseason. But, yeah. It's at least great to get a breathing room off football for the time being. Get the draft prepared, then the off season, summer camp, training, preseason, and then we're back at it again for another exciting fall to winter season. So I hope you guys enjoyed this takedown of the game, outstanding football game, off that game winner off the red zone. Shitty zone call, by the way. When you're pressed over and man, you're not even blitzing Mahomes. So, yeah. Get Shanahan fired. We're going to end it here. Also, over all the things to piss me off. Cole Hardman that literally came back to the Kansas City Chiefs in the middle of the deadline back in Halloween night. Wins it off a rollout pass off the flats from Mahomes at the end of the game. A New York Jet ain't canceled our season. Cancel our Super Bowl hopes.